Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
This is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast that's the opposite of Bliss, because this week we watched Hyde.
Written by Neil Cross.
Directed by Jamie Payne.
And aired on April 20th, 2013.
Better, you can't run, but you can hide, or something like that. I don't know. There's actually like no real hiding being done in this story now that I think about it.
Yeah, right after I finished this, I was like, why is this called Hyde?
One of the working titles of this episode was called like The Hiding of the House or something like that, because okay, production time. Neil Cross was like, yo, I want to do something. Well, he was tasked with doing something scary, so he wanted to do something kind of like the Stone Tape, which I know Keon actually watched.
Yeah, I watched it. Thanks for the recommendation, 50DW50 on Twitter. I watched the Stone Tape. It was really good.
Well, that's good.
And I'm going to bring up some of the relations between that and this as we get into them. But this, I also want to mention that this was actually written before Rings of Akaten. So Neil Cross wrote this, and then they asked him to come back for Rings of Akaten. And then they didn't ask him to come back after Rings of Akaten.
Because both the fan and critical reception of Rings of Akaten was poor.
Yeah.
And also I think he just didn't have time, because at this point he was developing his show Luther, or it had just aired its first season, which he's the showrunner of, which would go on to run for like another 5 years.
He's currently the showrunner of two shows, and that's one of them. I think it's still ongoing.
I think it is, yeah.
And he has another show too. I forgot what it's called. But Neil Cross is basically my favorite writer of the new series now, with this and Rings of Akaten.
I'm surprised. He'd probably be my favorite writer if they'd gone with the original conception of the story, which sounds like way cooler than what they went with, because the original conception of the story was that the lady who got trapped in another dimension was trapped in the dimension of someone named the Lost Lord, who was a Time Lord who had become lost. Space time. It still sounds kind of like Omega, actually, and they should have brought back Omega if they went with this. And he was feeding on the time energy of the other universe, which is why it was collapsing.
Remember when Omega tried to like flood Amsterdam or whatever that was?
Yeah. Throwback to the most evil of plans.
He was actually using like the negative like dark matter or whatever. I don't know. It was some weird plan.
And
I just turned that into Flood Amsterdam for the hilarity of it, I guess. I don't know.
But yeah, anyway, that got cut, and
that sounds kind of lame. Like, just a Time Lord, a renegade.
He went with the Crooked Man, and then Moffat was concerned that the Crooked Man was too simple of a concept. And that's why they came up with the Crooked Man being in love with the other one. Yeah, and that's really interesting. That's something that I kind of feels very tacked on at the end for me, though.
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I've been reading Helen Cixous, who's like a French feminist theorist. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of that sort of connected the dots of this story, reading her stuff.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I'm going to talk about it at the end, but I feel like a lot of the elements at the end of this were tacked on. But yeah, Neil Cross, he also wanted the Doctor to meet Professor Quatermass in this story. Yeah,
because the Stone Tape is written by Nigel Neal, who created Quatermass or Quatermass, however you pronounce that. And I was looking up some Nigel Neal, like just bio and information, and he called Blake 7 the lowest point in British television.
Wow.
He pointed to the dialogue. He said the dialogue was nothing more than something along the lines of like bickering children, and he couldn't watch it.
That is kind of true, actually.
I watched the Stone Tape, and I was like, dialogue sounds kind of like bickering children.
Anyway, apparently Neil Cross had basically just the audition tape for Asylum of the Daleks to go on through writing Clara's character, because this is the first episode that they filmed of this block of episodes with Jenna Coleman. Or I guess Jenna Louise Coleman, as she's going by at this point in the show's history. And apparently Moffat had to do substantial, well, not necessarily substantial, just rewrites to quote, make her sound less bitchy, unquote. So that was a thing. This is also, I think, what's the director's name now? Jamie Payne, his first episode directing. So not only was it Neil Cross's first episode writing, it was Jamie Payne's first episode directing. And
it came out really well.
Yeah, and that's it for production information. Although after this was made, they cast what's her name now? Who plays Emma? Jessica Raine. They cast her as Verity Lambert in An Adventure in Space and Time. After this.
Okay.
And yeah. Dougray Scott plays Alec Palmer, and he's actually like a pretty well-known, or at least it's a name that I recognize, although what from, I don't remember.
Maybe I've seen something he's in, probably not. I don't recognize the name.
So yeah, and that's it. That's production.
Yep, this story starts off, and right away it's a Gothic setup. There's a haunted house.
Except it's the 1970s, but...
Yeah, well, no, I mean, the Gothic is something that extends into today. The haunted mansion idea was sort of, I guess, created...
It's a Gothic reboot.
Yeah, it was created by, I always forget this guy's name. The guy who wrote The Castle of Otranto, which is the first Gothic novel. What's his name? Damn. As soon as we stop recording, I'm going to remember it.
And then you can put it in the show notes.
Yeah. I'll be in the show notes regardless. But. It's him and his assistant, and they're doing some experiments.
Companion.
Yeah. All right, yeah. They're doing experiments because they believe that there's a ghost in the house.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure if these two characters were based on real people or if...
Well, the plot...
If they were created for this, if like Neil Cross created them for the story. And I meant to look it up and I forgot.
I doubt they were real people because the plot of the stone tape, or stone tapes, I think it's stone tapes. I don't know.
I think it's stone tape, singular. When I looked up production information, it was singular.
Yeah. The plot of that is that this team of researchers are trying to find a new recording medium, and they buy this haunted house. Which they don't know. They buy this haunted mansion to do that in, and they find they encounter the ghost or whatever, and they find out that the stones, like literally the foundation of the house, what it's built out of, is the ghosts in that story are recordings made by the stones. But it gets at the end, it gets really weird. They come out with this info. It's like, it's not the stones that are recording. The recording, medium is our physical bodies. The stones are projecting the ghost, and our minds are like the screen, so to speak. I don't know. It gets very trippy at the end and very cool.
It's already very trippy.
And it's sort of, it's sort of about the danger of. It's a story. It predates the idea of a cyborg and stuff, but it's a story about using technology to erase mediums, right? You have this word in art or whatever, medium, the format that you use, so TV or even oil on canvas, clay, whatever you're making something out of is your medium, right? But there's also within that is this idea of in-betweenness, halfway in-betweenness, something that gets in the way. So the stone tape kind of deals with this idea of removing what's getting in the way, and and beyond that is something horrific. Especially at the end, and this will touch back to this episode at the end, because they investigate the ghost, and they're like, yeah, there have been reports of this ghost in this house since the 1600s. So they're like, oh shoot, the stones have been recording this. The girl died 400 years ago, and the stones are recording it. At the end, the spirit or whatever takes over the computer, and they find out, or it starts printing information that dates back 7,000 years. So they're I guess there's this anxiety of progressing into the future, using this technology to beam recordings directly into people's heads, or so to speak. Yet in doing that, you're not progressing into the future. You're actually uncovering something long forgotten in the past that's, in this case, evil. That's kind of what that was about.
Good plot synopsis. 6 out of 10 would maybe watch.
It was a 6 out of 10 movie,
Oh, good to know.
There's some romantic subplots.
There's some in this, too.
Yeah.
Multiple, in fact.
Yeah. This, I feel does those romantic subplots better. I can't believe I'm saying that, but... yeah.
I couldn't believe that you said this was actually scary, because
it was
was not scary. It was scary up until the actual science fiction elements came into it. I was fully on board.
So 2 minutes in.
No, because I was fully on board with this episode just being about like an actual ghost that the Doctor has no idea what's going on, and just being like, just setting this out. We'll talk about this at the end. But anyway,
when has Doctor Who ever had the courage
Black Orchid.
to? No, well, Black Orchid wasn't. Sorry, Black Orchid. What does that mean? Black Orchid wasn't, and it wasn't like there was no fantastical element.
Yeah, that's entirely my point.
Yeah, but you're saying you want it to be supernatural rather than like science fiction.
Yeah, I wanted it to be. I just wanted it to be straight horror with no science fiction stuff.
I don't know that Doctor Who has ever like had the balls to like just be like, yeah, it's just a ghost. Like it's not an alien, it's just a ghost, or it's just a vampire or a werewolf.
It hasn't. So
yeah,
I mean, okay, there was the werewolf and
it was an alien.
Oh yeah. The vampires in Venice were aliens too.
They were all aliens, or like time travelers.
The like vampires in Lost of the Gathering were aliens too.
Yep. Literally
we even talked about that on that episode. Yeah. That like every time Doctor Who does something like this, it's just an alien.
Yep. And this time it's no different.
Even the vampires in State of Decay were like.
State of Decay was on another planet, so. I mean, if we're going, this episode actually talks about. There's sort of this meta commentary about categorization in fiction. But if you want to go down that route anyway, which I guess I'm going to now, you can call a State of Decay like Sword and Planet, right? This genre where that takes place, it has like science fiction elements because it takes place on another planet, yet there's also fantasy involved.
Well, it starts with Emma and, what's the guy's name now? Dougray Scott's character, Alec. I just looked up Emma. And I'm pretty confident that it was not based on a real person. So,
yeah, I think it was based on these characters because the two main characters of the Stone Tape are the lead researcher guy who and his not assistant, like one of his team members with whom he's having an affair, and she's like the only female character in that. And I feel like there's some feminist stuff going on, which I'm not going to be able to. Speak to very much, both in that, but also like this is kind of a response to that.
Yeah, I got a very Ed and Lorraine Warren vibe from this duo as well.
Who's
Ed and Lorraine Warren are these two real life paranormal investigators.
Yeah, I know who they are.
You know who they are because the Conjuring movies are based on their journals.
Sure.
So that's kind of what I was getting out of that. But anyway, they're calling out to this ghost who's called the witch.
Walls is in the room, or I don't know.
The witch in the well. There's no well on the property though, and as far as I know, that's the one subplot of this episode that doesn't get explained.
Well, it's related to the portal to the Pocket universe was described as a well in like ancient texts. They bring that up in like one line later on.
Wow, I guess I missed that. And then the Doctor and Clara kind of just knock on the door and they're like, we're Ghostbusters. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, some of the dialogue in this was...
cringeworthy.
I don't like that word, but sure.
I mean, it made me cringe, so therefore it is an apt description.
Yeah, but I don't even like the idea of like cringing as a response to something.
It's a physical response, much like revulsion. So the Doctor's like, wow, look at all this cool equipment. And I was like, wow, look at all this cool equipment. I don't know, old scientific equipment is just interesting because they had to do everything like the most over-the-top way possible. Largely because integrated circuits weren't really a thing, so...
The Doctor starts flipping some switches, and then he says he likes the word toggle.
Yeah. This is just a random thought I just had, but it's kind of interesting how the first supercomputers were their speed was limited by, it's actually pretty interesting, the length of the cabling that they used inside the computer, because integrated circuits, again, weren't really a thing, and a lot of the processing for those early supercomputers was done in separate parts of the computer, so a lot of the slowdown in those things was due to like the length of the copper wire you were using between segments of the computer. So just an interesting thing relating back to that. They had to do everything as big as possible. But yeah, so they've got an old school oscilloscope, and Alex got a big kind of radar, I guess, dish that he uses to listen to the spirit, which I bring it up because it's important later on when he uses it again, and it kind of blows out his eardrums with noise, and that's when the doctor comes running, and he's like, what's going on? So basically what happens after the doctor and Clara arrive is that the spirit buggers off for a little bit so we can get some character developing dialogue.
Well, again, this is another episode in this season that feels like it has movie pacing.
Yeah. But like those crappy movies that don't know how to pace their movies, so it's like all over the place.
No, I mean, I feel like this one is in line with some of the other season 7 part 2 episodes in that. I don't know. The pacing for this one, I don't know. This is, again, I guess it's like Rings of Akaten, so I guess it's just a Neil Cross problem for me that, like, halfway through the episode, things just, like, dropped off in interest for me. Like, again, the instant that it was just revealed, but it was just a time travel from the future, I was like, oh, right, really? I mean, did you really, I guess you did really expect that it would just be a ghost or something.
I was expecting and, like, hoping.
I didn't. I mean, from the second...
Like, I was kind of hoping this would almost be like a Ghostlight situation where, like, up until the 4th episode, we had no freaking clue what was going on. It was like...
Up until the very last... I still don't know what was going on.
Like, I was hoping it was going to be something like that, like, which could be an actual ghost that the doctor has no idea what's going on, and they just, like, they banish it somehow, and then he's like, well, I have no idea what just happened. Like, I don't know. I think that would have been interesting. Like, it
would have, yeah.
I don't know. In my mind, things are scarier when the doctor doesn't know what's going on. To me, well, I'll talk about this at the end, actually.
Sure. Yeah, we can have like a horror segment at the end. But yeah, I guess Ghostlight is like the one time where they had the guts to like just be like, well, I don't know what the heck that was.
I mean, yeah, J&T was like, we got to have some sort of explanation at the end. That's why they had that like stone spaceship of a species that was like collecting life across the universe or whatever. Huh. But beyond that, there was like, what happened in Ghostlight? I don't know. But the doctor and Clara decide to go into the house looking around. Alec owns this house. Clara has a snarky line about how he went to like the bank and bought this haunted house.
Yeah.
And it was like the most awkwardly written line in the entire episode.
Yeah, there were definitely lines in this where it's just like, okay, Cross.
Okay, Neil, I'm on to you.
There's
he's the second. He's like, we have 2 Neils writing episodes this season. Sorry, I just realized that because we have Neil Gaiman writing one later this season too. We have Neil Cross and Neil Gaiman.
Huh. Yeah, I'd like to see a Neil Cross, Neil Gaiman crossover.
The look on Keon's face.
You mentioned this like exposition dump kind of thing. A lot of stuff is revealed here. It's kind of revealed what they're doing. They set up this love subplot. Kind of felt like Justin and Dana from Blake 7, honestly, with the sort of age difference here.
Yeah. Like Emma looks quite a bit younger than Alec.
Yeah.
Well, Alec fought in the war. World War... Well, actually, no.
He said he sent people to his...
Yeah,
he was sort of a spy or something like that.
I guess what war it was. This is set in 1970, so yeah, it must have been World War II.
Yeah, or like, I don't know. Yeah, it must have been World War II.
Should make him in his 50s.
Yeah, it just...
At least.
They also sort of set up the collection. They have like this collage of pictures. And they
taken throughout history.
Right, and the ghost is in them, but it's always in the same position in every picture.
Yeah.
Sort of facing the camera.
Yeah.
Freaking photobombing ghost.
Alec mentions that the soldiers used to leave like things for the ghost to try to appease it.
Right, and
the ghost has been noted all the way back to like what did he say? Like the 12th century, 13th century?
Something like that.
Clergymen used to talk about how seeing it was like communicating with the devil itself or whatever he says.
Yeah, the note and the canned spam are direct references to the stone tape. One of the things, when they go in, there's only really one room that's haunted in the house in the stone tape. And when they go in there, they find leftover canned spam from World War II. And they find a note which at first they think is a note to Santa Claus, and I'm like, this is a horrific like note written at someone's death. This isn't to Santa Claus, and they eventually realize that.
Right.
Why are horror movie characters always so dumb? I started watching Truth or Dare the other day. I didn't finish it, but I don't know. Characters in that were so dumb. There's also this thing of like, if you're watching a horror movie,
one that
like,
came
if
out
I
like
was there,
last year?
Yeah. The Blumhouse one.
I don't know, a big aspect of modern horror is that like if people just talked with each other, a lot of the things wouldn't happen.
That goes all the way back to the Gothic. In the Castle of Otranto, it's really just based on misunderstanding and miscommunication. And also all the, supernatural deaths and spirits killing people, but still.
Yeah, just that on the side.
Yeah.
So the Doctor and Clara go into the house looking for the ghost, I guess.
Yeah. And they bring up this idea of opposites and within that the idea of binaries, which are two opposing sides, opposites basically here.
Right.
And this is a big thing throughout the episode, but I just want to mention they first bring it up here. I forget what it was. The Doctor asks Clara if she wants to go with him, and I don't know, there's something there that I noted for that, but I forgot what it was. But then there's also this thing of like, what's the opposite of bliss? And Clara says Carlisle, which is, I looked this up because I had no idea what was going on. And I found a couple different explanations. One is that she's referencing the city of Carlisle, which is a city in England. She's saying that's the opposite of bliss. So like living there is not blissful or whatever.
It's taking a jab at Carlisle, Neil Cross.
But I also found out that every episode this season has a reference to, I guess this is a region in England, Cumbria. And this is that
That's
reference.
Weird.
Yeah. And
Weird.
The blog that traced all this out, and it did it so for every episode, even the ones we haven't watched. It didn't have an explanation. It didn't even try to attempt to say why this was the case. It was just like, here every episode is making a reference to Cumbria. And this is
Weird.
it.
But how much of that was like him just reading into things like references that aren't there? I don't know.
I just skimmed through
read it. I guess.
I mean, I'll link to the blog. Another sort of explanation I found is that the town of Carlisle is directly opposite across like a bay or something, with a town called Blyth, which sounds a lot like Bliss.
Weird.
Yeah. But just setting up this idea of opposites, which comes back to haunt this story.
Not really.
I mean, in a way it does.
Yeah, but not really.
I mean, well, we forgot to mention that What's-Her-Face is empath or whatever.
Yeah, kind of like a psychic.
Yeah,
but not really.
She's someone who reflects people's emotions.
Yeah.
So this again, also this concept of reflection, mirror images that are opposites of each other.
And the Doctor also mentioned something that the spirit can only be seen when there's a strong psychic present.
Right.
A plot thread that gets immediately dropped.
Not really. They need her to open like the gate to the pocket universe or whatever.
Right, but on the other hand, the Doctor travels through the entirety of space and time, or the entirety of the timeline of Earth, and takes pictures of the ghost without a psychic present.
Right. So those are mediated, right? They're taken through a camera. That has access, and again, this goes back to the stone tape, like this thing in between that gives us access to something to which we otherwise don't have access. And then again, the horror in that is when you take that away, what do you have?
I guess, but I mean, my interpretation was that even through the camera, you still needed the psychic present because, like in the very first,
it's not true.
Because in the very first scene of the episode, again, we see her summoning the spirit, and Alec pulls out his camera to take pictures, but like Alec doesn't actually see the ghost until he develops the pictures, because he sees her collapse and he runs over. He's like, "What happened? What's wrong?" And then he doesn't actually see the spirit until he develops the pictures.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, but evidently, like, you can use the camera to
which makes you wonder, like, why Emma is even required to be there then. If you could just use the camera, you just walk around that house snapping pics.
I mean, in the story, like, to commune with the ghost or whatever, to draw it out.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, in universe, like, if you just use the camera to see the ghost, why do you need Emma?
Yeah, to commune with the ghost, to draw it out, to, I don't know, get down to the bottom of the mystery of what
the
this
Doctor
even
truly
is.
doesn't need Emma when he goes traveling on his journey through time.
He doesn't. In that sort of journey, which takes like, I don't know, a couple minutes. I don't know if we call it a journey, but he doesn't like talk to, what's her name? Hilla, whatever her name was. He just sort of
Tavarian or something.
Yeah. He just sort of takes pictures of her.
Hilla Takarian.
Carrion, yeah. Which happens pretty much now. I believe they go back.
There's a moment where the Doctor finds a cold spot in the house and he circles it with a piece of chalk.
All right.
And
closes an anti-sea bear circle there.
Well, something kind of happens with this circle of chalk, but it's not really like well defined, nor is it really brought up, which is what I was kind of hoping the whole episode was going to be. But
what, you thought it was going to be? You had some really wild expectations about what this episode was going to be.
I did. Because I basically just wanted Ghostlight Part 2, to be honest.
That's another thing of like, it's another sort of Dodo situation where like, I feel like when we watched Ghostlight, like, we didn't really like it that much. And then like now, coming back, it's like...
I enjoyed Ghostlight when we watched it.
I did too.
But the thing about a story like Ghostlight that I don't think we actually talked about was that a story that like doesn't really tell you a lot of what's going on. You tend to fill it in with like your own interpretation of events.
Yeah.
And like the more vague it is, the more of your own interpretation gets in. And typically you're going to fill it in with things you like, right? So like how much of us liking Ghostlight is actually liking Ghostlight the story, or how much of it is liking the things that we just kind of filled in? Because there was...
I don't feel like I'm filling in Ghostlight. I don't even remember Ghostlight barely at all.
I don't know.
Maybe
this was the thing of like
Ghostlight.
Batman versus Superman. It was like, if you liked it, did you like it because of what it could have been, or did you actually like the movie that it was, kind of thing? I don't know.
Sure. I don't know. I think there's a difference between filling in blanks and interpreting what's going on. But
I think they can go hand in hand.
Maybe there's not. I don't know.
But yeah, then they go back to the main part of the house, and the ghost shows up once again, and the Doctor asks... This is when the big kind of like crazy scene happens. All the equipment's going wild because the ghost is like even more powerful than before now.
And they're this sort of like portal, I guess, opens up, and it looks like
it's kind of hilarious.
It looks
portal.
like it looks like just a mirror floating. I get like a circular type thing, but it's distorted, and you don't really see it very well. We forgot to mention that throughout all of this are some really scary scenes interspliced of like this creature creeping around the house.
You know what I actually wanted from this episode, and I just realized, is I basically just wanted the 13th Doctor episode with the frog out of this episode. And I'm just realizing that episode is what I wanted this episode to be.
Wow. People are still going on about the frog. I still have no idea what it is, but it's still on Twitter.
You'll see.
It's still on Twitter. People are like, if you like the frog, then you dislike everything Doctor Who has done for 50 years.
That's like Peter Purvis saying that the massacre is everything that the Doctor Who was and should have been like the distillation of the perfect Doctor Who episode, or whatever he said. I know I'm like twisting his words now, but...
I think he said something along the lines of, if you don't like the massacre, then you like don't understand what Doctor Who's really about, or something.
Again,
let's be honest, he's just saying that because he got to be the main character.
I was going to say, again, I'm sure he's just saying that because he was the lead in that story.
Still the worst Doctor Who story ever.
Yeah. I bet even if we found the actual footage, it would still be the worst.
Probably be even worse. To be honest. No, I don't know. I don't want to make that guess. Actually, that would be worse, just in the sense of, like, there's so many other episodes that we could have found the footage for, and yet the massacre is the one that comes out.
Well, I read a story that, like, basically indicated that the final episode of The 10th Planet and then the first episode of Power of the Daleks actually did exist, like, in full in some private collector's collection, and he just was, like, adamant about not giving it to the BBC. And people were like theorizing on like the reason why, and people were like, well, I guess he just really likes having something that like nobody else in the world has, and he can hold on to that. Like he has all the bargaining power here.
Wow.
And everyone's like, these are like the two most pivotal lost episodes of Doctor Who, and this guy's just holding on to them. Of course, we don't know for sure. There was like mostly just a rumor that they exist in this guy's collection.
Sure.
That it's basically just a rumor mounted on the fact that one guy saw the film cans but didn't actually see the film inside them. It's like it's entirely possible it's mislabeled film cans or whatever.
Yeah, even if it is a rumor, that's actually in a way more interesting. He's like harnessing the power of this rumor against people, but whatever. If he really has them, he should just share them with the world.
Yeah.
Then again, I think every, I don't know what you would call them.
I think information should be free.
Product, yeah, I think I don't know. Actually, I don't think that. I don't know.
Not necessarily free, but I think it should be available. I
Sure.
don't think it should be monopolized by like one person or a group.
Sure.
So the doctor then, after this whole big thing happens, the doctor has a theory when he sees that it's the portal, because I think he realizes at this point that it's a bubble universe, much like the one in Doctor's Wife, and he uses the same explanation in the Doctor's that he dismissed in the Doctor's Wife. Because in the Doctor's Wife, he described it to Amy. He's like, imagine a balloon sitting on the side of another balloon. And she's like, oh, it's like that. And he's like, no, not at all. But it helps you visualize it. But in this episode, he just directly pulls out two balloons. He's like, look at these two balloons. This is the pocket universe in our universe.
Yeah, maybe just to help them visualize it.
Kind of makes you wonder if Neil Cross watched the Doctor's Wife and was just using the explanation of that as shortcut to explain the pocket universe here.
Maybe all Neils have like some psychic connection.
The Neil mind. Like the hive mind.
So the Doctor and Clara go into the TARDIS, and Clara doesn't know what's going on, but the Doctor's like, just trust me. And he goes throughout all of history, goes back to some literal city of death.
He goes to the literal beginning of Earth, primordial ooze, and he pulls out the spacesuit from Impossible Planet Satan Pit that the 10th Doctor also used in Waters of Mars, that the 11th Doctor's now using. That I guess is just a default spacesuit, so I guess it's really good that he kept it around in the TARDIS.
Didn't keep the umbrella
stand, though.
Was that a reference to the hat stand?
Yeah, that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, as did I.
But also the 7th Doctor had a place for his umbrella, so I'm pretty sure he had like an umbrella stand.
The more we bring it up, the 7th Doctor's era is just a blur to me. I can barely remember any of those stories. The most vivid image of the 7th Doctor to me is when him and Sabalom Glitz are holding onto that ledge.
Oh, that's good.
Dragonfire.
Hang on to that. For a couple episodes from now, hang on to that.
Oh, God.
I'm glad you remember that image specifically.
Is Sabalom Glitz making his big comeback?
Everybody's sitting at home who knows like the rest of the season is like, yeah, hang on to that, Keon. Hang on to that one image.
Are those barcode sideburns gonna make their comeback like floral print pants for women from the 80s? Don't know why I made that reference. Maybe it's because they should have never come back and they should have remained in the past, just like the mediated whatever ghosts from the stone tape. Yeah, it's the real horror. Floral print pants.
You have some strong feelings about floral print pants. So the Doctor travels through this whole thing, takes all these pictures, and he comes back, and they develop them, and they put them in this slide reel.
I like how this montage is done. It's just Clara looking skeptical, and the Doctor like just taking these pictures throughout history. He goes to like the Jurassic period or something, or like the ancient past, and then they're like probably in the 19th century as well. And the Doctor's just like showing her the pictures and like just slyly smiling or whatever.
There's a moment where Clara's like, how can you just be okay with watching the entirety of Earth's history just unfold?
Right.
And this is where Neil Cross dumps his like conception of the story into the actual story itself, because his idea was like, time travelers are just ghosts trapped in time. Time and ghosts are the same thing. And I was like, whoa, Neil, you lost me. But, you do you. And that's the thing is like here, Clara's like, I mean, my body's just sitting out there somewhere for you, right? And he's like, yeah, I guess. She's like, so I'm just a ghost to you then, right? And he's like, no.
Well, here's the thing. Also, I don't want to touch back on this at the end, but this is related to like this binary thing that this episode sets up, because in a slightly more meta sense, Clara is also asking like, what are we to you? Like, what are your companions to you? Are we alive or are we just ghosts? There's these two opposing sides, right? Alive and not alive. And and within, of course, I mentioned Helen C. Sue earlier, but within a lot of theory, right, there's a negative side to the binary, or setting up these two oppositions necessarily places one on top of the other, to where you can go like, it's not so much alive and dead as it is like alive and not alive or unalive, which then calls to mind death. But that's also a way of pushing, or a way of saying like, yeah, here's everything I am, and then this opposite, which is bad and that we don't want, is everything that I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if the Doctor is like, because we get all this we get the idea that Clara, the TARDIS doesn't like Clara.
Right.
And we have this idea already established that Clara isn't the best companion. She doesn't know, like, she has all of time and space open to her, and she's like, oh, I don't know where to go. Take me somewhere awesome. She's not, like, maybe very interested, or she's not the typical, she's not the best, not the person you maybe want to travel with.
Mm-hmm.
So is the Doctor constraining her? Is he putting her into the, like, is she a ghost in the sense that he sees her as what he wants her to be or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I really wish I could talk about the resolution to what Clara is, because a lot of that ties into the resolution at the end of the season when we find out the answer. I feel like I can't really adequately touch on that topic without spoiling it for you, so I'm going to hold my thoughts until the end of the season on that.
Sure. This is one of the biggest mysteries in Doctor Who. I don't know why I'm so invested in who Clara is, but I don't know. It's so interesting. Even Donna, there was kind of the same thing with Donna. We didn't know who she was, but this is more interesting. I guess because she's spread throughout time or whatever.
I guess
we get another Clara in this episode, but it's just a projection.
It's just a projection of the TARDIS.
But even then, it's like, whoa, slow down. Too many Claras.
No, you can never have too many Claras. That's a lie. So the Doctor then he plays all these things, and this called to mind like the It reboot for me, because there's a scene in that. I haven't seen it, but you've seen the scene where the
gutter scene.
No, these kids are playing these slides on a slide projector, and each image it is getting closer, and it comes out of the projector to get them. So yeah, I don't know if that was in the original book or not. I haven't read the book. So.
I feel like I haven't read the book either, but the more I hear about the book over the years, it's just like Stephen King just put all these ideas in this book and just put it out there, and there it is. Wow. I don't know.
Weirdly enough, the main villain in A Wrinkle in Time is also just called It.
Yeah. Well, IT, right? Information technology. No, I'm kidding.
Actually,
in a way it is. So.
Yeah, that book is complex and touches on a lot of interesting things in regards to the difference between technology and religion, I guess, or the relation between technology and science and religion. It's a remarkably complex subject to tackle in a kid's book, because it is a kid's book. But anyway, they watch this thing, and the Doctor's like, see, it's just a time traveler trapped in time. See, for us, it's millions of billions of years, but for her, it's been 3 seconds.
Right. She's in this pocket universe where time is moving a lot slower, faster.
Slower.
Yeah, slower.
Yeah.
Which explains why in all the pictures she's in the same position, because she's literally in the same, step that she started.
Right.
Whatever, 7,000 years ago or something, whatever it was.
This also kind of falls
or billions of years ago, I guess.
This kind of gets dropped as well.
What?
This idea that the timelines are running at different speeds, because the Doctor goes into the other timeline and then they just run and leave.
Yeah, I guess it does get dropped. You can kind of headcanon in a way of when they go into the portal isn't exactly the same as when they come out of it or whatever, but
I guess, but the Doctor sets it up like it takes 3 billion years for it to take 3 seconds of time.
Yeah, they just come out and they're
the Doctor gets in and it's just moving at this, and then the timelines sync up and move at the same speed. And I was just okay.
Yeah.
And the only reason why it is a bother to me is because this timeline discontinuity was integral to the Doctor actually figuring out that it wasn't a ghost. It was how he figured out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than just something that was just a cool aspect of the story or whatever. Then I would have been whatever, but the fact that it was integral to the Doctor realizing what was going on. Yeah, which kind of leads into they go in. Well, the Doctor goes through the portal into the other universe.
They use, I forget her name again, as
Emma
as a portal to open the portal. As a medium, so to speak.
Her power is boosted by the eye, a subsect of the Eye of Harmony, but also by a crystal from Metabolus 3.
which is Metebelis 3 from the Third Doctor's era.
Do you think the Third Doctor pocketed this crystal, like, when he went... Because wasn't the plot of that story that he had to, like, take his crystal back?
Yeah, well,
or something like that, because they were upset that he had, like, nicked it?
Yeah, this was season 9. Season 9. And then kept mentioning...
10, sorry, 10.
10?
The Third Doctor got 4 seasons.
10, yep. They kept mentioning Metebelis 3.
Yeah.
And eventually they went there and Planet of the Spiders, and that was, that whole story.
Yeah, with the blue crystals and the psychic spiders.
And Houdini.
I guess the Doctor just held on to this crystal for like hundreds of years, or he went back, I guess, at some point.
Yeah.
The spiders from that story show up in an 8th Doctor audio called World Wide Web.
Wow.
But yeah, so the Doctor goes in and he finds Hilla Takarian and Emma is able to create a house in the Pocket Universe, which serves as a portal link back to the main house, the real house.
Right, and they also realize that Hilla is running away from something, and it's the creature or whatever.
Yeah, it's called the Crooked Man in the credits. So.
Slender Man. I mean, kind of.
Kind of. Oh, this was actually cool. One production note, sorry, that I didn't mention. They filmed the Crooked Man's motion in reverse and then reversed the film to make him look more unnatural.
Yeah, it's sort of choppy. Whenever the Crooked Man moves, it seems like the frame rate slows down a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's very scary because you don't really see him until the end, so it's like this sublime thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was scary. I was watching it like pretty late at night though. So.
Scarier than Hilla Takarian's Travel Ghost.
Yeah. It was really well done. It was probably one of the best Doctor Who creatures in a while.
Yeah, it was realized really well, and it was really clever filming him in reverse and then reversing the footage.
Yeah, probably really saved on the budget there too. So from a TV making perspective, I can see why they brought Neil Cross back after this, and then he made Rings of Akaten. Although it wasn't his mandate to create the 60 aliens or whatever, but yeah, I can see why they didn't bring him back after that. Despite how much I liked that story.
Budget poison. But then the Doctor gets trapped because Emma is kind of exhausted, so the portal closes. Now the Doctor's running away from the Crooked Man.
He breaks out his Venusian Aikido. No. But he's sort of running away, and they have kind of a showdown.
Well, so Clara goes back to the TARDIS, like, you got to take me back, and the TARDIS is like, no, can't do it. But then Emma opens the portal again, and I guess the TARDIS can use the portal to travel between the universes as well.
Yeah, interesting. The TARDIS projects an image of Emma to talk to her.
Clara.
Yeah, Clara. I still keep wanting to call Clara Jenna. But so she projects an image. Yeah, I guess TARDIS is a female.
According to the Doctor's wife, yeah.
Projects an image of Clara. And it also explains that it would project an image of whoever Clara revered the most, and it's herself. So I guess, I don't know, she's pretty full of herself.
Yeah, that was what I got out of that. Back in Let's Kill Hitler, the TARDIS projected an image of Rose, and then the Doctor's like, no, guilt. And Martha and Donna's like, no, more guilt.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Which I guess means that the Doctor holds his companions in high esteem. Yeah, because I think the exact word that TARDIS uses is someone that you esteem.
Yeah, sure. We also skipped the scene. It's sort of like an intimate moment between Emma and Clara, where Emma tells Clara not to trust the Doctor. He has a sliver of ice in his heart.
It's true. Literally 2 weeks ago, he killed a god and then just left these people without a religion. If that didn't tip you off, what does? But yeah, so the Doctor
hitches a ride back on the TARDIS.
Yeah. And then everything is all hunky-dory. We're all good. The Doctor inadvertently reveals that Hilla Takarian is Alec and Emma's great-great-great-great-granddaughter or something.
Okay, so how did they... This was done really quickly, and I didn't get it. So first the Doctor's just speculating. He's like, what if Hilla is your, whatever, however many greats granddaughter? And then he's like, wait a minute, she actually is. But I didn't get how he moved to, knowing for sure.
I don't think there was any speculation. The speculation came in, Emma was like, oh, can you take her back? And the Doctor's like, no, she canonically disappeared and that's a fixed point in time. So I can't take her back to her own time, but I can take her somewhere else. And then when Alec comes by, he mentions that she's their great-great-great-granddaughter. But the way he worded it makes it sound like it was speculation, but he's like, it's like fact, but and he's like, that's why the psychic link was so strong, because it's blood calling to blood. I was like, okay. And then as the doctor's about to leave, he realizes the crooked man was just looking for the crooked woman.
Whoa, man.
His whoa, man of his dreams.
There's still 5 minutes left in the episode, so they of course have to resolve this. Like 2.
Yeah, it's like 2 tops.
But this, I mean, this is like that classic, I don't know, like Monster Peladon, or whatever whatever the second Peladon story was, where it's like, you think it's over, but there's still 20 minutes left, and they have to go over the mountain.
I mean, that was the one that also padded it out with like 5 minutes of Sarah Jane just whipping out feminism.
Yeah, this episode I feel like has some feminist qualities, or can be read in a feminist way, which again I'm not going to be able to speak to too much, but I think it does a better job than whatever that second Peladon story was, Curse or Monster.
I know we looked up what it was once.
We looked up like every time, or forget every time.
That's how indifferentiable the two were. But the doctor goes back to rescue the crooked man. And
you finally see its face. You finally see it up close.
It's horrifying.
And it looks horrifying, but it looks more human than it otherwise did.
And it ends on that moment without actually seeing if the doctor succeeds or not. I guess he does.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's set up to, like, do.
Next week, we get Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
Yeah, the preview makes that look like a really interesting episode. I know you've said that episode isn't that great before, but it looks really cool.
I actually don't remember that episode a lot. I just remember my first reaction to it being negative, I guess, because I didn't know a lot of the lore behind Doctor Who. So, and there's like in that episode, because they go into the TARDIS, there's a lot of like references to things. But I guess we'll see. I'm realizing now, actually, that just as a segue into talking about this episode, I first want to talk about for a moment that I'm realizing now that a lot of this half of the season I'm actually having difficulty remembering from my first watch through, which is a surprise because I remember like the first half of the season like pretty well with Amy and Rory, and I just don't remember a lot of this at all. And I don't know if that speaks to the quality of the episodes or just maybe my lack of involvement or dedication to like caring about Clara in any way. It's just interesting though that I'm finding a lot of these episodes like pretty difficult to remember. Like I had forgotten this episode even existed, and I like barely remember anything about the plot from next week. And Nightmare in Silver 2, I couldn't tell you anything about it except that the Cybermen are in it. So anyway, I was kind of hoping the story to be more just straight horror, basically, just horror without really like the sci-fi bent to it. I was kind of hoping the ghost would just be a ghost and not like a time traveler or anything, just sci-fi, like just have it be something the Doctor hasn't encountered, because this is what I was going to touch on earlier. To me, things are scarier when the Doctor doesn't know what's going on, because the Doctor's been set up as this character who like knows everything. He's been traveling for like 900 or 1100 years now, I guess, right? And he's seen like everything in the universe. And even within this episode, Clara's like, you've seen like everything, right? You've seen the beginning of everything and the end of everything. The Doctor's like, yeah, I have. Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
So in my mind, things are scarier when the Doctor himself doesn't know what's going on, because he's supposed to be this omnipotent being, right? Sure. And I don't know. Also just personally, I guess I didn't find it scary because for me, I find things that are more psychologically terrifying to be scary. Because I was thinking about this last night when you texted me about having nightmares. I was thinking about my nightmares. I realized like a lot of my nightmares are like more psychological than straight horror.
Yeah, those are mine, but
so
yeah. But I mean, this episode is also one that's about like genre and it's about categorization. I mean, at the end, the Doctor like literally looks at the camera and says like, "This isn't a ghost story; it's a love story."
Wow.
And I don't know. There's this again. I want to touch back, like I seemingly always do, on what I've been reading, which is Helen Sissou and her sort of theory, I guess. She has this, I don't know what you'd call it, article called Decapitation or Castration. Maybe it's the other way around.
Is that a choice? Do I have to choose between the two?
Yeah, I can send you the article if you want to read it. It's really fascinating. Where's I going with that? Oh, right. That's sort of a feminist, theory, and she posits that masculine writing or like masculine thought or whatever is one that is necessarily involved in categorization, so like creating genres and stuff like that. And she says that a feminine writing needs to not either follow that or resist that, but be outside of that. Because in resisting it, she sets it up is attesting to the power of whatever the opposite is, and that's where she kind of brings in the binaries. She says, if you want to resist binaries by opposing them, you're still playing into like their overall power.
You're still accepting that the binary exists.
Yeah, and you're really reinforcing it. But then there's also this idea in this story, and we actually skipped over the scene with Alec in the dark room, which was pretty interesting. He talks about being a veteran, but he was also part of the Secret Service, and he sent people to their deaths. And his and Emma's like relationship or whatever we kind of also glossed over. But like there's also this line in here of like love is endless.
But love never ends.
Yeah,
at the end of the episode,
ends.
The doctor says sometimes. He adds the word sometimes to that statement, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. The doctor in this episode traces beginnings and endings, right? He goes to the beginning of of Earth and also
And
to the end. And he also describes really interestingly Clara as she says like what am I to you, or what are we to you, or whatever, and he's like you're the only mystery worth solving.
Yeah.
And in this paper, in this Sisu paper, she sets up like this economy between the masculine and feminine, which she doesn't describe as male and female. She says she mostly just uses masculine and feminine, which she says, both male and female can be either masculine or feminine,
right?
Or whatever. But she says, the masculine is drawn to the feminine because it doesn't follow this economy of return. It's outside of that, and I don't know. I'm trying to describe this really badly, but where was I going with this?
Well, don't ask me because I haven't read the paper.
Let me just think for a second. Oh, right. She says that like there's this idea of like being the masculine drawn to the feminine because it's not dependent on it can be dependent on like an endless economy that either gives away without any desire for return or takes without any desire for giving, and these are all very vague concepts, but it's just interesting to me that this love, which is supposedly according to this story never ending or doesn't trace beginnings or endings, is like the cure to I don't know what the doctor is maybe doing, which is like he's this categorizing impetus. He's this one that places things within boundaries and controls stuff.
Right.
Which is again sort of this masculine figure or writing is trying to do within Helen Sisu in her theory, but also another theory that deals with the concept of binary, like what's it called? Orientalism. Edward Said's famous book, or Toni Morrison has this other book. I forget what it's called, but she talks about American Africanism, which is kind of this same thing, but whatever. It's just interesting to me.
Yeah.
That's what all of this was kind of about. In a way, like speaking to using genre. I don't know.
I guess. I don't know. For me, the story was more about, love, I guess. It reminded me a lot of Interstellar. Well, the whole thing about in Interstellar, I'm not going to spoil anything, but like a big thing in that movie was that like love transcends physical boundaries or the laws of physics. Like that was one of the big things in that movie.
Yeah.
That love guides them to where they need to go. Like they go to the first planet they go to because Anne Hathaway's character was in love with the scientist who picked that planet, and love in that movie leads them to make both poor like decisions and good decisions. So
sure, yeah. I barely remember that movie. I just remember that like there were some ecological like things going on in that movie that like people didn't like, or like I don't know, that
Actually,
They were
most of the
like, I don't
criticism
know.
I heard about that movie was the whole love transcends physical laws of physics things, and I was like, well, I mean, it made sense in the context of the story, so whatever. There's
Well, they introduced time travel,
yeah, well, not so much time travel as time dilation,
Yeah,
which is an actual physical concept that they did very well in that movie.
but they did it in this in like as if it were like deja vu or something like that, in a way.
Oh, there is also time travel in that movie, though. I guess with the dad and the watch,
I forgot most of the plot of that movie, so whatever.
but also with Alec, there's like a sense of like he's seeking for his, I guess, redemption. Because he talks about having killed so many people in the war, and that's why he looks for ghosts now to like prove to himself that they exist, that they're like not entirely dead because of his hand.
Doesn't he say he also wants to like apologize to them or
Yeah, and he
something?
also wants to apologize. I mean, it reminded me a lot of Sarah Winchester out of the Winchester Rifle Fortune, who there are indications that she had some sort of mental illness, but she believed that she could hear the spirits of everybody ever killed by a Winchester rifle, and that's why if you've ever been to the Winchester Mystery House, the whole reason why that house is so big and like nonsensical is because she went to a psychic or to a medium who basically said to appease the spirits, you got to keep building. Like, you got to always build to appease the spirits. And that's why the house is so big and nonsensical, because they kept building day and night for like 12 years. And that was the thing, was she was haunted by the spirits of people who were killed by the rifles that her dad made and sold. And
Supposedly.
yeah, well,
Supposedly
again,
haunted,
supposedly.
not supposedly sold.
Yeah, well, supposedly haunted. Again, like there were possible indications she may have had some mental illness as well. And I don't know, Alec just reminded me of that he's just been haunted by the people he killed and he's looking to apologize.
Literally. No,
yeah.
not literally.
Literally.
Well, not literally, because he didn't kill Hilla.
Yeah, and this is also this idea of binaries again, in that he's killed all these people, but in revealing that Hilla is his great-great-granddaughter, that he's created life as well with Emma. That not only has he ended life, but he's also created it.
Yep.
So, yeah. I don't know. I was just kind of bummed that there wasn't more, just less sci-fi and more just straight supernatural stuff. But hey,
Sure.
what are you gonna do? It was still like a decent episode.
I
It
liked
was still
it.
pretty good.
I want Neil Cross to come back in the Chris Chibnall era.
Potentially.
Maybe he will.
Maybe he won't.
Yeah, I mean that's the binary of like when you say maybe he will. There's the other side to that, which is like maybe he or something like not maybe he will. I don't know.
I mean, you don't always have to put the not in the front of the whole statement.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I felt like maybe I'm just trying to draw this connection a bit too far, but like the idea of how they can't bring the TARDIS into the pocket universe for more than like 2 seconds because there's too much entropy is like system entropy. I guess you call it is theorized to increase when there's more information. So like that's also people who like try and theorize the internet or and stuff like that. This is a problem for them where they're like, you're connecting information and it's creating entropy. So how do we do that?
Yeah.
And
Well, because
entropy?
at its base level, entropy is just a measure of the disorderedness of a system.
Yeah.
So with more information, a system tends to be more disordered. If you ever wondered why your headphones get tangled in your pocket, it's because of entropy. Because there are more states in which your headphones are tangled than in which they're not, and you're gonna tend towards the system that has the most states.
Yeah. But going back to this idea of binaries not as opposites but as like negations. So you're not keeping the same amount of information. You're adding like the not to everything, increasing information, increasing entropy. I don't know, something like that.
I don't know. Entropy. This is the second law of thermodynamics: is entropy must always increase in a closed system, and the universe is a closed system, and that's why physicists are worried about the heat death of the universe, because eventually the thing is that entropy will get so great that everything will just kind of not necessarily collapse, but basically become like a homogeneous, unified, just kind of sludge, basically.
Yeah,
because that's the system in which there's the most disorderedness.
Yeah, there's Thomas Pynchon, who's like a very secretive writer. I don't want to use the word author. Has a book called The Crying of Lot 49, which is like pretty interestingly about that.
There's Arthur C. Clarke has a really interesting. It's one of my favorite short stories called The Last Question, I think.
Yeah, I've read that.
Yeah, where humans create a computer that they basically ask if there's a way to reverse entropy, and the computer says not enough information for a detailed answer. And basically, the computer exists beyond the existence of humans right up to the heat death of the universe. And at the very end of the universe, the computer says that it's figured out how to reverse entropy and basically creates the universe anew at the end of the story. Basically becoming the god of a new universe. I don't know, I really liked it. Again, those links between technology and science and religion.
Mind blown.
Anyway, on that topic, you can email us at drdecorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on
Entropy. Do you like it?
Yeah, do you like it? Do you not? Are you indifferent about it? You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. Find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you liked the show.
Like us on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also like us on Twitter at TYD Podcast. And follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're going to be watching Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. But until then, the end.